Welcome to the Family of Choice Webcast with Andrew Vachss. If you're here, you already know the score, but here are some of the basics. The occasion is the publication of the 18th and final novel in Andrew Vachss's Burke series, Another Life. And this is the national book tour for it. Welcome to the 21st century. No airplane, no driving to a bookstore. Andrew Vachss will be answering your questions live and direct for the next 3 hours, Eastern, Central, and Pacific. But if you're a fan, you'll want to stay for all three. I'm Mark Ronner from the Seattle Times, and I'll be your moderator. Stepping in for hour two will be Mike McNamara, Deputy Chief of the Park Forest Police Department and a Director of Licensed for Life, a nonprofit organization designed to show young people the dangers of impaired driving, and Michael A. Black, a police sergeant on the Matson Police Department, who's also the author of 10 mystery and suspense novels. Then I'll bring it home in hour three. Andrew Vachss, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, we'll see, huh?
We will see. Can you start off by telling why you wanted to do this way?
Well, look outside and you have your answer. Nobody in their rational mind would do a book tour in the middle of January unless you wanted to exclude everybody north of, Phoenix or Tucson. The real reason, though, is that every single book tour I've ever done, mail floods in. And it's all the same, which is, why did you not come to my city? Why did you not come to my town? And people take it a lot more personally than I ever meant it because, A, I don't design book tours, and B, logic will tell you that there's X number of cities you could visit. So I'm closing the show on a series. The only rational way to do it is like this. So it doesn't matter where you're located. You'll have the same access as a person who would be at a bookstore at one of the events. We're trying to replicate that. We'll see if it works.
And it's green.
It is?
It is green.
How's it green?
You don't have to waste airplane fuel.
I don't know how much this electricity, lights and stuff is burning, but you're probably right.
Okay. Well, let's start with your questions. Let's get this one out of the way from Zero List member AK. AK says, I'm sure you've been asked this many times, but I've always been
47 after AK is not their age.
No.
Don't be confused here.
No, we're safe.
All
I'm
right.
sure you've been asked this many times, but I've always been curious about your eye patch. I know it's not just a fashion choice, so I'm just wondering if something happened to your eye during one of your varied life experiences, or if you were born with the problem. What was your first book? Okay, yeah. All right.
What am I going to say? It's very simple. I was not born with the problem. And the reason I'm wearing these glasses now instead of the eye patch is I had to pull a bunch of cataracts out of the good eye. It can no longer tolerate glare. This is my walking around look, day or night. There won't be any more eye patch, which has its upside, but I'm stuck with these, so it's kind of a wash. I was not born with whatever caused me to require a patch over one eye.
How often would you say you get that question?
Wow. You mean in person or by mail or what?
Total.
If it doesn't come in once daily, I'm pretty sure communications have broken down between me and the outside world.
Well, maybe this will settle it for good.
Oh, it'd be nice, but...
All right, let's try another one. What was your first book? Lifestyle of the Violent Juvenile?
My first book was a textbook. It was called The Lifestyle Violent Juvenile. And by that we mean the kid who is violent, not episodically, but chronically. His lifestyle is violence. I ran a maximum security institution for just such young men and came away with a whole blueprint for how I think it should be done. And a wonderful architect named Antoinette Nascimento actually has recreated, somehow out of my mind, the architectural renderings to go along with the text. And with any luck, if you click on the zero tomorrow and hit updates, you should be taken as an option to the actual architectural plans.
But you also had another first book,
Yeah.
which never got officially published. Do you want to talk about Bomb Built in Hell?
That was a novel. I had one of those mythical agents that everybody dreams about. Guy who really cared about you personally. Was not trying to use you like you're in a meat market. Guy who was with me for, I don't know how many years. Never made a dime. Never made a dime. Time after time, I'd just tell Victor, his name was Victor Chapin, I'm done with this. This is nonsense. I'm never going to make a dime doing this, and I need to earn a living. Time after time, he'd encourage me. Finally, I wrote a book, not A Bomb Built in Hell. That one had already been rejected by every publisher in the civilized world because I had such a sick, crazed, fevered imagination that I could actually write a book about a disaffected, disillusioned, violently angry young man walking into a high school with a duffel bag full of weapons and killing a whole lot of people. Well, this could never happen, so the book was rejected by everybody.
And what year was this?
Oh, God. The rejection started coming in probably, I would say, late 60s all the way through the early 70s. They came in waves, although the waves were steady. So I was ready to pack it in, and Victor really begged me to try one more. Just take a little of the edge off. Stop telling me it's the truth. That doesn't count. Just soften it up. So I wrote Flood. And Victor got it, read it overnight, called me the next day and said, this is it. You finally did it. We're home free. This is a bestseller. We're all going to be rich. You know, he was just so happy. I was happy. And he died a couple of days later. And I just really said, thanks a lot. And threw the manuscript in a drawer and went on about my life. It wasn't until, a couple of years later, a journalist was interviewing me about a series of trials that I'd done, and said, these are such incredible events, you should write a book. And I said, I did write a bleep, bleep, bleep book, but nobody wanted it. So he asked if he could read it. I said, sure. I gave it to him. He showed it to a guy, and Flood ended up being published. So that's it. It's no more complicated than that, and it's as much blind luck as that, too.
17 books later.
17 books in that series later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's take another question. Dozens of people have asked some form of, why the end of the Burke series now?
Because I'm keeping my word. When I started doing this, I didn't think there was going to be a second book. That's why I freely admit that my first book is probably a third longer than I would have liked it. I thought it was a one-round fight, so throw every punch you have. As it turned out, it wasn't. I had a much greater opportunity. So the pledge that I made was the characters in this book, the core characters, were going to age. They were going to change. They were going to adapt to changes. It was not going to be a series of set pieces where the hero, not a name anybody would use for any of my books anyway, is 35 years old for 25 years. This is a family. It's a family of choice, not a biological family. You can call them outlaws, you can call them whatever you want, but they're a family. A family has obligations. The obligation of this family is that their children not follow in their footsteps. If the road isn't going to organically fork, they have to make it fork. That's what I've done. We reached that stage in the series where the children of this family are of an age when it's time for them to go. They have to go to another life if that family is to have meant anything. Hence the title and hence the close. This is the way the show closes.
Probably people who are tuning in already know what family of choice means, but can you talk about that a little bit?
Family of choice is real simple. Too many people believe in DNA like it's a religion, positive or negative. That's wrong. And too many people who've been damaged, almost you'd think beyond repair, by their own families. I'm putting quotes around that because the only thing that makes them family is that biogenetic connection, have managed to form families of their own. Those families are indeed families of choice. I've got one. I know many other people have got one. And I think the family that you choose is going to be the one that meets your standards and you meet theirs. It's very, very different from the usual, well, you'll only have one mother. Doesn't have to be true. You only have one brother. Who said that? There's no laws in nature that would force me or anybody else into some DNA connection. So the name is just what it sounds like. It's a family that people chose to become and have stayed throughout the series.
You must get a lot of people who read the books and a light bulb goes off and they think, oh yeah, that's my life.
Yes. That's probably the prototypical response to the books. Of all the responses to the books, the one I can count on is people who say, you're writing about me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's take another question. This is Josh from Brooklyn. Is there any chance we could get the recipe for Mama's hot and sour soup? I've tried 20 recipes, and nothing eats as good as hers sounds. Thanks for all the great reads and the education.
Well, the answer to the first question is no, but it's not because I'm being cute. There was no recipe. What Mama would do, quite literally, there was a pot, I don't know, like this, like a pot a cannibal might cook in. And as she'd walk by, she'd throw whatever was around in there. And then somebody else would stir it. So you didn't get two bowls alike at any one time. There literally was no recipe. And it literally did taste different. But I'll give you one tip. If you're in a Chinese restaurant, you ask for hot and sour soup, and it's not dark, pass.
Do I want to know why?
I don't think you do.
Okay. Questions that's come up dozens of times. This is from Charles in Chicago. If this is sadly the end of the Burke series, what are you doing next, and are you done writing?
Writing for me has never been an expression of creativity. It's never been a catharsis. I was not born to be a writer. I haven't read most of the great books. For me, it's been a weapon of war. It's been a propaganda, if you like that term better. It's a chance for me to speak to bigger juries than I'll ever get in a courthouse, bigger audiences that I'll ever fill up an auditorium. It's opened an enormous amount of doors I didn't even know were there. It's way too good a weapon to put down now. So just think of it this way, okay? I've got this rifle. It worked beautifully for 20-some years. It's not working as I want it to now. There's a better rifle available, but the same target will always be in the scope. So am I done writing? No.
You've always talked about these books as Trojan horses.
Yep.
And yet, you've told me before that there are certain people who consider themselves purists who don't like what you're doing with that for some reason.
I don't know what they consider themselves, but there's no question that the books violate the rules of the genre. If what you're looking for is Raymond Chandler updated, better leave my books alone. I really wrapped so much fact throughout the crime novel genre because what I really wanted was a journalistic effect, not a novelistic effect. So I understand that people who think that there has to be a private eye who's got his feet up on the desk with a bottle of bourbon and a pneumatic blonde walks in the room and all of a sudden he's not concerned about money, he just takes the case. Probably during the course of the book he shot 4 or 5 times, hit in the head 15 times, stabbed a couple of times, has sex maybe, 20, 30 times. And he's fine. None of this stuff actually slows the action down for a page. It's not me, and it's not real, and it's not what I wanted to do. Sorry.
And in Another Life, you do this in all the books, but in Another Life especially, you ridicule, like, what, if I were some Chandler private eye, I'd be doing this right now.
Yeah.
But you really drive it home this time, and calling shows like Law and Order a sitcom.
Law and Order is a sitcom.
But one thing that you do consistently, and have done especially in Another Life, is point out the difference between the fiction that people sort of malnourish themselves with and what you're bringing to the table.
Well, I'm not really trying to distance myself on that ground. What I don't want is for the well to be poisoned. Remember what I do for a living. You don't want to be in a court in a so-called molestation case and have the defense screaming, "Where's the DNA?" Even though you know there can't possibly be a fluid transfer given this type of criminal conduct. And you'll have jurors who are now so acculturated, that so much CSI on the brain, they believe there's always a trace. And if you, the prosecution, can't show the trace, the guy must be innocent. It's really a response to that kind of well poisoning that I'm doing. I'm not really interested in knocking anything. I just don't want the people to take it seriously. I don't want anybody to think you can hit somebody in the head with a tire iron and you'll knock them out. You won't kill them. There's a whole lot of young men doing life because they believe that, just like there's a whole lot of young kids with one eye because they think this is the proper way to hold a semi-automatic pistol. It's really intended to be the antidote to that more than a debunking of it.
Okay. Well, this leads us to a relevant question from Marie. She says, what constitutes a good investigation by law enforcement and child protection when child sexual abuse is suspected and the victims are 4 to 6 years old?
A good investigation is an investigation that goes in unbiased. A good investigation is trying to find the truth. A trial's not a search for the truth. A trial's a fight, and there's a winner and a loser. The winner isn't always truth, but an investigator has to have absolutely no other commitment. He has to be what journalists should be, and that is your only God is the truth. So a good investigation is one that actually finds the facts. It's as simple as that. I couldn't explain to you, even in 3 hours, all the steps that go into a good investigation. I can tell you, and when Mike get over here, they'll be happy to tell you that nobody does interrogations like they do on Law and Order because they blow every confession. You don't interrupt somebody you finally got to talk so you can throw in a quip. You don't get into duels with narcissistic, sociopathic human beings verbally. You let them speak. If you're lucky enough and skillful enough to get that door open, you make sure everything's come out before you say anything. That's one example of 10,000 I could give you about how to wreck an investigation.
Okay, this next one is from Karen from New York. I'd like to know how you feel about the work of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and how do we get the NCMEC to differentiate between children who need to be returned to loving parents and children who need to remain missing from abusive ones?
The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children doesn't make those judgments. It's not up to them at all. In fact, they don't make any judgments. In fact, they get dozens of millions of dollars a year from Congress, essentially to be a place where you can report child pornography, which they in turn report to law enforcement. I can't defend a system that to me not only makes no sense, but is very scary. It's like the black water of child protection. Why should we be outsourcing what the government's supposed to do in child protection? Why should this be in private hands? I've never gotten an answer to that. But then again, I'm not a lobbyist.
Okay, next, Monica from Pittsburgh. What do you think of the popularity of gotcha pedophile sting shows like To Catch a Predator? Do these really serve to inform people about the danger, or are they making freaks and predators into popular entertainment?
I don't think they're making either one, frankly. I think the only predators they've caught are such low-level humans that they really don't pose the kind of threats that we're talking about. It's entertainment, and you need to face that it's entertainment. The only thing they're doing as a public service is educating predatory pedophiles about what traps are out there and making them more careful, that's all. I don't see any value to such shows at all because, again, it's amateur hour. You have people who are not law enforcement professionals playing at this. I don't think it's a good idea. And I don't think you're going to bring down anybody of significance doing so.
Isn't it also true that a fair number of these alleged stings they make don't stand up? They have to throw them out because they screw them up?
Of course. I'm waiting for the, what do they call the show? Predator, what?
To Catch a Predator?
Catch a Predator, whatever. I'm waiting for their scorecard. I want to know how many pitches they made, how many traps they set, how many people they caught, how many people were arrested, how many people went to trial, and how many people went to jail. And then how much did that all cost? And if it balances out, I'll apologize. But I got a hunch it's not going to.
All right, here's one more. What's your opinion of parental alienation syndrome, of which Alec Baldwin says he's a victim?
I don't know what Alec Baldwin may be a victim of, and one could speculate about that for hours. But there is no such thing as parental alienation syndrome. It was I hesitate to say, brainchild of an individual who never succeeded in getting it adopted by the American Psychiatric Association. It is not a diagnosis. It's a defense attorney's dream. That's all it is. There is no parental alienation syndrome. There's people who believe in it, but there's people who believe in almost anything, including, the Cubs winning the World Series. The truth is, it doesn't exist. So what do I think of it? I don't know how to respond to it. You might as well ask me what I think of alien abduction syndrome.
Okay. Here's a question from Paula Breeze. Was there a specific event that started you on the path you followed of passionately defending children and their rights?
There was a specific event, but it's not one that I can talk about with a lot of euphemisms. I was an investigator in sexually transmitted diseases for the federal government. What that meant back in the day was somebody come into the clinic with syphilis. You'd have to persuade that person to give you a list of all the people with whom he had sexual contact in the past 90 days, 6 months, sometimes a year. And then you had to find all those people. Well, remember, this is the late 60s, not now. People would not acknowledge a homosexual contact. They would not even acknowledge an adulterous contact without a lot of skillful interviewing. And even people who were honest with you and would tell you, look, I don't know her name. She was a whore. I met her in a bar. I paid her the money. I think her name was Mary, and I remember she was blonde. You'd have to find that Mary, and you'd have to find her and literally take blood from her in the field and make sure you could find her again, because if it popped up bad, you had a chance to crack an epidemic chain. I thought I was a pretty tough kid, I thought I'd seen what there was to be seen. It wasn't until someone came to the hospital with his genitals lacerated, told the nurse that he'd cut himself on a zipper. He told the wrong nurse. This was an old Army nurse. She came back while I was waiting in one of the rooms and said, I've seen that before, and he didn't do it to himself. And a little short time later, we found the baby that he penetrated without any kind of lubricant, and then went to the hospital because he was in pain, leaving the baby there. And I thought I met Satan, I thought I met the worst human being ever on earth. When I found out that he had comrades, that he had brothers, that he had sisters, that he was one of many such creatures, that's when my decision was made. It hasn't changed since.
Let's take another one from Heidi T. What else can we do to help fight child abuse in addition to joining Protect? Any thoughts on what would be the most effective and worthwhile? And maybe you should explain what Protect is to people.
Yeah, see, I'll make it very simple. Protect.org. If you go there, you'll have all the information you want. But in short, it's not a charity. It's a lobby. It's the first lobbying organization for child protective issues. And Heidi, did you say the woman's name was?
Oh, I think so.
Okay, well, I'll say this to you, Heidi. If you've already joined Protect, it's a membership organization. You have to give up dinner and a movie once a year, $35. If you've already stepped up and done that, You're really setting the standard. Enough people do that, and the way we protect children in America changes radically. Because, let's not pretend, politicians respond to lobbying forces. Every success we've had at Protect has been as a result of hardcore lobbying and media. That's what Protect's there to do. When we get enough members, the game changes.
Why do you think more people don't get as outraged about this? I mean, obviously not everybody comes even close to seeing the kind of things that you've seen that would rightfully make anybody enraged and want to do something about it. But I mean, I think we're getting at this. People go nuts when somebody tries to screw with the Second Amendment and regulate guns in any way, but people don't get outraged quite as much about this subject.
People get outraged in the sense that if someone sticks a microphone in front of their face, they'll say, oh, just give me 5 minutes alone with that guy. But when it comes to actual prioritizing of what's important to them, child protection will be on that list, but it won't be number one on most people's lists. And there's also a huge portion of America that believes that children are the property of the family, and that to interfere in any way is wrong. So these are the people that are happy to have a human being, you know, so I'm not saying a man, a human being sexually assault a neighbor. They're happy to have him go to prison for life. Does the same thing to his own kid and bring on the therapist. You know, he's a sick man and he needs help. That's a mindset that's been with us for many, many years. And until that's overcome, until we collectively say it's our job to protect children, related to them or not, things are going to stay the way they are.
I just want to run with this for a little bit longer. You've been arguing also for years that there's nothing sick about it. It's not a sickness.
Of course not. Of course not. You mean pedophilia?
Right.
That's a real funny joke. See, that one did make it into the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association. But if you look at it, they're talking about a state of mind, recurrent, intrusive fantasies about sexual conduct with children. Well, I don't care what fantasies people have. I don't care how intrusive they are. What I care about is conduct. Behavior is the truth. So, you can fantasize about anything you want. It's not until you do it that you become my concern or anybody else's. I ride the subway to work. You don't think I consider homicide as an option every single day? Now, if we acted on everything that we thought, there'd probably only be 4 or 5 of us left and we'd be fighting. You're not allowed to do that. I don't want to be the thought police. I don't want to run around and tell people, don't think about committing crimes. Don't keep diaries about committing crimes. Don't write comic books about committing crimes. I don't care. But when you act on your feelings, that's a volitional choice. They're not paranoid schizophrenics who will act like paranoid schizophrenics no matter where you put them. You can put them in court. They'll act like paranoid schizophrenics. I've not yet met a predatory pedophile who will sexually assault a child in front of strangers. And I don't expect I will. Not only is it a volitional act, it's become an extraordinarily profitable act. And while the internet did not create child pornography, that's a ludicrous myth, it has made it a cottage industry for a lot of freaks who realize if you grow your own victims, the American criminal justice system gives you a break on your sentence.
And that's one of the things that Protect has been working to overturn in each state.
Protect has succeeded at overturning it in several states. The one I'm most proud of course, is New York, but not all states. Just like not all states will provide counsel. And by counsel, I don't mean a warm, caring volunteer. I mean a lawyer for a child who's alleged to have been abused or neglected. His parents, again, I'm putting the words in quotes, they're entitled by law in every state to lawyers. If they can't afford one, they get one for free. The petitioner is the state, and their job is to protect the state. So if they did a crappy investigation, it's their job to protect the investigators. The child is only independently represented if the child has his or her own attorney. In New York, that is the case. In most states, it's only a maybe, and in some states, it's a never.
All right, let's ask another reader question. This one's from Karen Plumley. When I begin one of your novels, I lose myself completely in the story. It takes me days to come back. As an author, how do you come back or reclaim your soul after the novel's completed?
Because I don't leave. See, I don't transport myself to any place to write what I write. All I need is really a good memory. Because when I started out as an investigator, they didn't have these tiny little microphones you could carry around. They didn't have tape recorders you could put up your sleeve. It had to be here. You do not interview somebody in a gambling den. You do not interview somebody in a whorehouse or a place where they're trafficking in firearms and take notes. Wouldn't be a real smart idea. So you develop a very good memory and a very good ear. That's all. I don't claim to have any creative skill, but I've got a real good memory and a real good ear. I remember what I heard. I remember what I see. The books are just an organic extension of my work. I'm not anybody who will ever get writer's block. So for me, it's no transition at all.
Right. Now, related to this, there are probably a lot of people who don't know where you leave off and Burke begins and assume, apart from the fact that you happen to not be a career criminal that I know of.
I am a lawyer, so that's, kind of a thin line.
Well, I'm a journalist, and nobody's going to win
There
this
you go.
competition.
That's right.
People tend to make this, what's the term for it? Authorial fallacy? I can't remember the term of it. But
I never heard the term for it.
Okay, but they assume that you're like Burke or vice versa, and maybe you could unpack that a little bit.
Look, I want Burke to be your eyes and your ears to a world you're not likely to visit, but that you should know exists. So do we share the same taste in, women, racehorses, music? Sure. Does a lot of that rage and anger in him come from within me? Absolutely. But I'm not writing my life story here. I don't know what more I could tell you than that.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, you want to know if I had a Neapolitan Mastiff? Absolutely. Do I have a pit bull that I miss greatly? Yes. There are parallels there, but remember, to live that life is antithetical to writing a book. What Burke wants is to be under the radar forever. He doesn't trust anybody in the citizen world. He doesn't want to be part of it. It's a world I can navigate on both sides of the fence. I write about this side of the fence and I live on that side.
But you actually, some of the characters, the main characters you drew from people you know or knew.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
You had a Mama's restaurant when you were coming up?
Not when I was coming up, actually. That was my law office.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not saying that they're not based on fact. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that there isn't a foundational truth to everything in there. I am saying that I've certainly taken characteristics of one person and characteristics of another that I know and done this to make one. Sure. And of course, I'm not going to write about anybody who's still alive and discuss criminal conduct. That just would be a wrong thing on my part to reveal that with which I've been entrusted. But no, I don't have to search around for inspiration for anybody, no.
Okay. Here's another reader question from Don in Belton, Texas. He's asked 3 times, are you going to do A Bomb Built in Hell in hardcover release?
Yeah, you know what? We're going to have an answer for you, bro. I promise you. What happens is every time we say, do you want A Bomb Built in Hell as a paperback book? You want it as a conventional hardback? You want it as some kind of limited edition? We get responses. Unfortunately, there's no unanimity. And now they've added ebooks to the mix. We're even further away. Sometime within the next, I'm going to say 18 months, we're going to just bite the bullet, pick one, and roll with it.
you want to tell a little bit about the history of that? Because you did make it available at one point.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what happened with that book, which was never published, we did make it available free on the website. You want to download a whole novel and read it? God bless you. It got downloaded enough times that if we had sold that many books, we'd be doing great. However, we can't really extrapolate from that because it doesn't cost you anything. We're not charging you anything. Our experience has been that people do want to read that book. It is, in fact, where the Burke book started. It's really Wesley's story, not Burke's. So people do want to read it. Apparently, we're not satisfying them with having made it available on the website. So now we are going to find some method of publication. I can't promise you I know what it is, but we'll find one.
It's the collectors who want an illuminated manuscript.
Well, collectors are a different breed. I mean, I don't know if they read books, but they want them.
I've noticed you bring out the collectors, though.
Yeah, but there's something, I don't know. I don't want to condemn any group, but there's something about a guy that comes up to you with a shopping cart with 37 copies of a single book, and signature only, please, because I like to give them to different friends and I haven't decided who yet. And this is a guy who hopes your plane crashes on the way home so that the eBay price is going to go up on his merchandise. It's hard for me to feel a kinship with him.
That's how much he loves you.
There are people that appear to treasure the books. There are people who buy 2 copies of every book. They want one signed and they want one to read. You, all blessings upon you. Those of you who are simply, looking to make a living off signed books, too bad for you. That I don't cooperate with that, and I understand I'm nobody's favorite in that world for not doing so.
Talk about galleys for a second, too, because you've got a policy on that.
We'll tell people what galleys are.
Galleys are uncorrected proofs that are sent to journalists and reviewers ahead of time.
Right, and none are printed in my book because my experience has been, and I proved it to my publisher, and I'm only talking about my books, so don't make more out of this than what I'm saying. If you send out 500 galleys of my book, 450 of them will be on eBay within a week. Because if you blindly send galleys to book reviewers, there's no book reviewer on this earth that could read 500 books a week. No book reviewer is going to try. So if you have an eBay guy saying, I'll take all your excess galleys as long as you don't do the unthinkable and actually try and read them. I want them unread. And I'll give you a couple of bucks for a book. The fact that the galleys are legally not for sale hasn't deterred a whole lot of people. So I found a way to do it by not having galleys. So anyone who tries to sell you a galley of another life, call the cops.
There we go. Okay. Here's a question from JP in Winter Garden, Florida. Have you considered contacting HBO about a Burke series? Burke has it all. He'll be missed. Oh, wait a minute. We're jamming questions together here. Let's go back to HBO.
It's okay with HBO.
That's okay,
I mean, this is a great chance for me to dispel a lingering, I can't call it a myth because it was true, but it no longer is. Bottom line, Variety, you know the Bible, Variety? Yeah. It ran a story saying HBO had purchased the Burke series, and they told you who was going to be the writer and who was going to be the star and who was going to be the producer and all that great stuff. However, although we had a handshake, all I feel comfortable in saying is at some point down the road, we disagreed. And the one thing I can promise you for sure is you won't see a Burke series on HBO. The bane of my existence is people who call my office, movie people, and say, I know the Burke series is already held by HBO, but what about, and then I have to say, no, HBO doesn't have the rights. They've reverted back to me. But I'm not going to take out an ad in Variety to say that, so the myth is going to linger for a while.
Okay, so that's settled.
That one is settled.
All right, let me see if I can get through this one because they've been kind of jammed together. This is from Penelope. She says, I've heard Mr. Vachss say that sex offender civil commitment laws and sex offender registration laws are a trick on the American public. Could you discuss that further, please?
Sure. I think Megan's Law is a clinically insane piece of legislation. It's based on the proposition that a human being will rape a baby but not lie about his address. It's just lunacy. And the last time I looked, well over half of all registered sex offenders were whereabouts unknown. Nobody had their address. And I don't see where Congress has appropriated the money to track them down, to return them to the jurisdiction they fled from, and to prosecute them for violating one of their release conditions. Without that, all it's doing is providing entertainment. So you can look up on the internet and see, who's the sex offender? I don't get it. I literally don't get it. A ton of money for PR and no money for actual enforcement of the law. It makes no sense to me. Civil commitment, that's validating the insanity defense for people who attack children. Think about it for a minute. Guy rapes a baby, does 25 years in jail. When he's done, I have to let him go. He's done all his time, no parole, it's done every day. He says, I love raping babies. I'd like to do it again and again. If you let me out, I'm going to do it. They say, okay, we can civilly commit this guy. Because he's crazy. Because he's pathological. Because he's got some kind of disease or illness. So we're civilly committing him. We're not incarcerating him. We're civilly committing him so we can get help for him. Think that through for a second and understand that what you're really doing is creating an insanity defense. You're creating a situation where a lawyer comes to the court and says, my client raped 26 children. That proves he's crazy. You have to acquit him, not guilty by reason of insanity. And I'll prove it to you, because the law says that if a person says such things, expresses such an intent, and does such things, you can hold him past his jail sentence because he's crazy. They don't work together. It's as simple as that. Civil commitment laws are, whoops, we made a mistake. Whoops, we made the plea deal too soft. And now the beast is out. So let us cover ourselves with this civil commitment nonsense. Make up your mind, when you drop this kind of person, you drop them for the count. If you're not willing to do that, it's all wordplay. It's a lot of money spent for no results.
Let's talk about the other side of that coin for a second. You've talked at length about treatment for these people and healing them and how that doesn't exist.
Look, you don't heal a person of anything against their will. There's no such thing as coercive therapy. A predatory pedophile is not sick. They don't have cognitive dysfunction. They don't have problems with reality testing. They do what they do because they like to do it. The remorse they express, if they express any, is at being caught. You can't cure this because there's no desire internally to change it. What you can do is teach people exactly what to say to a parole board. You can teach people advanced predatory behavior by grouping them all together so they can share stories. But cure? It's antithetical to reality. You don't cure people of doing something they want to do, they like to do, that gratifies them. And anybody, I don't care if they're a cop, a social worker, a person who works in a hospital, a clinician, will tell you they've never heard of a first offender predatory pedophile. Never heard of one. Never caught one yet who, upon full debriefing, doesn't disclose many more before he or she was caught. Where's the cure? And I'll give you another example, and this should settle it. If you're an alcoholic, you're a dope fiend, you're morbidly obese, you're anorexic, something's wrong in your life. You look in the mirror one day and you say, I can't be this anymore. I can't live like this anymore. It's going to kill me. It's going to kill the people around me. I can't stand myself. I can't see what I see in the mirror. If you get to that stage, there's people, your own brothers and sisters, who will surround you and help you and support you and stand by you. How come, with all the sex offender treatment programs we have in America, nobody volunteers to go into one? How come the only people in there have been sentenced there? So without that desire to change, you're spending a lot of money on studies. And the studies, when you strip away the crap, tell you people do what they like to do. A sociopath is not Lifetime TV. It's not somebody who's handsome, charming, and intelligent. It's somebody who has no sense of empathy at all. Nobody's home. He feels only his own pain. He cares only about his own needs, he or she. They pursue what they want unhandicapped by morals or ethics or law. If you think of morals and ethics as a weight, and you think of life as a race, sociopaths are going to win. Fortunately for us, most sociopaths are not predatory pedophiles. They could be politicians. They could be used car salesmen. They could certainly be major investment bankers, couldn't they? They can profit from their lack of morals and ethics and look like real people. Never tell the difference. That's why the predatory pedophile is the shark in your swimming pool. You do not see them coming. You only see where they've been.
And you argue that there's no healthy state for them to return to.
That's rehabilitation.
Right.
Right? You've done a lot of stuff that, I don't know, maybe you don't want to talk about. You've done a lot of wrestling, right?
Sure.
A lot of martial arts. You've broken things, right?
Once or twice, yeah.
Okay, so they heal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's called rehabilitation. They work again, right? For a while you couldn't make a closed fist.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can. If you never could make a closed fist, how can I fix you?
Exactly.
Well, these are people who were never habilitated. So the whole concept of rehabilitation, it's a sick joke, and the joke's on us.
Okay, let's take another reader question. And apparently many people have asked this one or a similar one. Trevor in Charlotte wants to know, will you ever write about other characters in Burke's world again?
I can't really do that. I have to find a voice that works. And I'm not talking about my artistic sensibilities. I'm talking about my capabilities. I don't believe I could successfully write more than one or two third-person books in my entire lifetime. One of my favorite authors, Charles DeLint, I think his book's around here someplace, I don't know. But Charles can write in 40 different voices in the same novel, and you absolutely buy it. I couldn't do that. I couldn't write in Max's voice, you know. I couldn't write in the Prof's voice. I just couldn't do it. It wouldn't work. It would sound tinny coming out of my mouth. So the fair answer is no. I wouldn't do it unless it was third person, and I think it's a little late for that.
Would you ever agree to let another writer pick up the ball like they did with the James Bond books?
No.
Okay, next question. Will from Chicago wants to know, how do you feel about the court-appointed special advocate program in Chicago?
I don't know about the court-appointed special advocate program in Chicago. This is what I think about the court-appointed special advocate program, period. When it functions as an adjunct to the child's lawyer, I think it's great. When it dysfunctions as a substitute for the child's lawyer, I think it's disastrous. I think it's horrible, and I think it is, in fact, abusive of children.
This same reader says he's going to join, and he wants to know what he should expect and how he can be the most useful.
Inside CASA?
Mm-hmm.
Damned if I know. I mean, I can't tell you how it works here. I'm not from here. I'm from New York. I can tell you how it works in New York. In New York, no CASA is the child's voice in court. No CASA represents a child. A lawyer does it. There are states in which warm, caring volunteers represent children in abuse and neglect cases. I want you to understand for a second. I want you to think about it for a second. If I ask you, what's the highest stakes trial you could have? You're going to immediately say, oh, the death penalty. And I'm going to immediately laugh. The highest stakes trial you can be in anywhere in the American justice system is the trial where if the wrong result comes out, the perpetrator gets to take the victim home as a trophy. That's high stakes. And when that happens, that's how you get your Ted Bundys, that's how you get your Charles Mansons. They're not biogenetic misfires. They're human beings, and I have no pity for them, and I'm not, blowing them away wouldn't, cause me to lose any sleep. But we make our own monsters. We build our own beasts. And the family is the crucible in which so many of them are formed. The failure to intervene properly, correctly, forcefully, is the cost that we end up paying down the road.
There's probably a lot of people who still believe that bad seed myth. Do you want to talk about why that? Why you don't believe in that?
Well, why I don't believe in it should be obvious. Why people believe in it is because, hey, it was a movie. It has to be real, right?
Of course.
Yeah. Look, people are comforted by the bad seed myth. They like the idea that you can be born bad because then nobody's responsible. It's a lie. I guarantee you that if you took Ted Bundy and put him in a different family when he was very young, you wouldn't have a serial killer at the end. There's no question that there's a formation process. You don't get a monster by recombinating DNA. It just doesn't happen. People aren't born bad. There isn't any evidence at all to support that proposition, and cubic tons of data to reject it. But people like it because there's no responsibility there. Some people are just born bad. Hey, that anybody believes that for real, I'd really have to question, their own cognitive abilities.
All right, let's take another reader question. This one's from Chris Murrin. He asks, is there an age beyond which you don't think it's possible for a victim abuser to break the chain of abuse?
Okay, that's really two questions. If the question is anybody ever too old to actually break that chain that's been wrapped around them from abuse? No. People have made, I'm 75 years old, they said, that's it, I'm done playing out the trauma script that these humans who called themselves my parents wrote for me. So that's not at all age limited. But if you're talking about the chance to impact on a human being and change his or her path, that probably is. But it varies with the person. I've met 11-year-olds that I really considered calcified. They were so completely concrete in their thinking that I couldn't even repeat the words they used to me. I don't believe there can be any therapeutic impact upon them. I would still try. But I met 16, 17-year-olds who've been written off as permanently dangerous beasts who you could turn around. So I don't believe there's a magic age. I believe in calcification. If you've committed the same acts often enough, and they triggered that pleasure center in you often enough, so you've made that absolute connection and commitment, it is too late.
All right, here's a question from Cam Hughes from the Rap Sheet. In writing a character like Burke, how did you juggle his nobility with his acts of savagery and cruelty?
I fail to see his nobility, to be very honest with you. It's not noble to protect your own. The fact that Burke would die for his family is, like the minimum daily requirement. That's the threshold. That's the entry card. If you're not, family of choice doesn't mean a couple of people will get together on weekends. It means you're closer than blood could ever make you. If you're not willing to step in front of a train for a brother you chose, the word shouldn't come out of your mouth. I don't see Burke as a noble character at all. I don't. He's really a career criminal. He's a mercenary. He's a person who can get paid to do just about anything. The one thing you can't pay him to do is the kind of things that were done to him. And he's not a vigilante. He's not predator hunter. He's not going out there wearing a cape looking for bad guys. But if you pay him, he'll find them. And if you should happen to cross his path and you're one of them, it'll probably be fatal for you. But none of that do I consider nobility.
Yeah, I think you have a line in Another Life. Somebody, I don't know if the right term is mocking, but somebody asks him about being a white knight, saving children, and he's really driven by hate.
No, there's no question. Burke's religion is revenge. He's a vibrating, pulsating piece of hate. The hate is reserved for just about everybody except his family. Burke's neutral feeling for you is distrust. And it can go to hate instantly. But that's where he starts, from a period of distrust. He's not a noble guy. That some of his acts may have had noble results, you have to look at what he actually intended. And if what he intended to do was either motivated by money or a need to protect his own, then it's not nobility in Burke's world at all.
He doesn't think of himself as a hero, does he?
No.
Okay, here's a question from Dominica from Buffalo. I want to get my hands dirty. How do I get into saving children from trafficking and abuse?
Well, trafficking is abuse. So, it really depends on where you want to plant your feet. We don't have enough CPS, Child Protective Service caseworkers, in this country. You know why? Because we've made the profession so impossible. This is what you have to do if you're a Child Protective Services worker. You have to go places where no cop would go alone, unarmed, with no radio contact, knock on a door, not know what's inside. And when you get inside, you have the very simple task of protecting the child and rehabilitating the parents simultaneously. And for this, we'll give you a lot less money than we pay people who pick up garbage. If you want to actually step up to the front lines, there's a million ways to do it. Law enforcement does it. Nurses do it. Doctors do it. Social workers do it. It's the choice that you make of how you're going to use the skills you've acquired. There's no one child protective job. There's a million of them. So you could pick your spot. If you want to do something about actual trafficking, you need to be an FBI agent. And the federal government's got to start funding the FBI to do something about this instead of funding these public service announcements. I don't know what else I could tell you about how to get into the game, because you'll find your own way. If you maintain anger, if you maintain enough genuine hatred of people who hurt children, you don't need empathy for the children who've been hurt. You understand? All you need to do is focus on your job to stand between those children and perpetrators. If you can do that, it really doesn't matter at all how you do it, in what form you do it, even, to be real, why you do it. If you do the right thing for the wrong reason, I don't care, and neither will the kids care. I don't know how many gazillion kids I've represented in my life. Not one kid has ever asked me why you're doing this. If somebody's drowning, you throw them a life raft, you don't have a motivational discussion with the person who grabs the life raft. He just grabs it. There's a million doors open to you if you want to do this. Pick one, take the course, do the training, pay what it costs. Pay it in here, and then go fight. You can't lose because we're surrounded.